let's do an intro first.
Intro, who
yes.
am I?
Yes, there you go.
Joe Edelman. I play the tom role here and there, which means mostly rhythm guitar, vocals, a little bit of keyboards. My amp of choice is Tom's amp of choice is the Vox AC30. He's got an actual, I think, like 1962, whatever. This is a newer. I got this in 2015 or something. It's the hand wired. It's got the same look, which is awesome. That fawn Tolex thing, which is really nice. Sounds great. Can be loud as hell if you want it to be, but also can pull it back if you need to. And going into that, I've got a small array of pedals here. I would say this is far from the largest pedal board I've ever put together. But
certainly.
It's reasonably sized. That's what I needed to. Main things for Tom, he doesn't use a ton of effects, live, especially in his rhythm parts. It's usually just like little bits of overdrive and maybe a little bit of reverb or compression. So I've got this compressor, which is essentially meant to model the 1176, the Universal Audio 1176 compressor, which is what Nigel will use in the studio, on songs like Reckoner when he's doing like finger picking and things like that. Mm-hmm. So that's typically what I use that for. The Freak Out is a feedback pedal, so if I need a little extra help in the beginning of there, when Tom, he takes his guitar, he takes his hollow body, he takes a hollow body, it's an ES 125, I think it is, and he brings it up to the amp and gets natural feedback. I try to do that, but I also kind of want to keep it controlled and not go completely crazy. So I use this to kind of help, which is cool, because I can create feedback on demand. For gain, I'm using this MXR Timmy. He does not use. It's basically it's a clone of a pedal that was like a boutique thing called the Tim Overdrive. Sounds really good with the Vox. I think he uses a Crowther, a Hotcake Overdrive. This one's really cool. This is a distortion. This is called the Kilt by JHS, and it's a clone of a pedal that he does use, which is the Dixonic Expandora, which is what he used for Body Snatchers in the live performances.
And there is a kilt right on it.
There's a kilt right on it. So it's kind of like a rat-like distortion kind of thing. Harmonizer, that's mostly just for an octave up. I use that on Where I End and You Begin. He has that kind of solo section in the middle.
Sure. Yep.
It's got like a harmony kind of sound or an octave sound. Holy Grail Reverb, I use that for also for Where I End and You Begin, in that middle section where he's kind of like bashing the heck out of the strings and he gets those big reverberant echoes. I also use it on Talk Show Host for like a little bit of ambience. And then this is the DL4. It's a delay pedal, but it's also a looper pedal. He uses it mostly as a looper for songs like Bloom. But for tonight, I'll probably just use it for little bits of delay here and there, little repeats. And then this board is a combination of things. It has my vocal effects processor, so if I need to loop my vocals, like for Lotus Flower, for example, it goes through this. It also has what I use for my acoustic guitar processing, which is this HX Stomp. So I'm running my Martin into that, and my guitar has both a magnetic pickup and a microphone on it, so I can kind of play with those signals in here, and I can change the patch. So that should work. So if I have the acoustic, it's set up that way, and then I can just kind of change the preset back to my amp, and it just passes through the normal guitar signals. So it's kind of a junction point. And then this is just to control the looper, things like that. So I don't use everything on there, but it's just kind of the hub.
Right.
For that, vocal section, my mic.
Mike's keys.
Keys is over here. This is the Nord Stage 3.
Right.
I needed to cover a lot of ground because obviously Tom, during the course of a show, he may be playing an acoustic piano, a Rhodes electric piano, a Prophet synthesizer. So this thing is...
You can't get all that up here?
I could, but I don't want to make it any harder on ourselves than we already have to. So this does all of them pretty well.
Right.
I've got really good piano samples in there, a good electric piano. And then for the synth, it's got a synthesizer engine in it, so
very cool.
For certain songs, I can kind of capitalize on that and get a synth sound. It's not exactly a Prophet, but you can even load synthesizer samples into that too, which is what I do on a few songs.
And the guitars?
Guitars are over here. So, like I said, for acoustic, I'm rocking this Martin.
Excellent.
0018, local, Pennsylvania.
That's
local.
right, exactly.
Yeah,
Way to go there.
Beautiful guitar. Just got this recently. He does play I believe a 0018 as well as a 0018 on tour with Radiohead. So it has that kind of nice, gentle voice for things like exit music or No Surprises, things like that. It has a really beautiful sound.
For certainly.
Epiphone Casino, another favorite guitar of Tom's. This was a 1997, the year of OK Computer. I got it used in I think 2017. And it's a really cool turquoise. I just like the color. He does not use a turquoise guitar, but I love a turquoise guitar. So there it is in all its glory. And I changed the pickups out for Lindy Fralin shout out to Lindy Fralin, really awesome pickup maker in, I think, North Carolina. And awesome P90s there. And then this is a British legend. It's the Rickenbacker.
Right.
Well, actually, it's an American guitar, but it's used by a lot of British bands, including the Beatles and Radiohead. But it's a 330 model, fire glow.
Beautiful.
Very similar to the one that Tom uses for songs like Lucky and National Anthem, things like that. He's used it on a few things, but Lucky's the one he probably wheels it out for most. And this guitar is fun. This is a Squier Telecaster, one of their classic vibes. It's meant to be like a 70s Telecaster Deluxe. So I, got it stock, and then I did a few mods to it. I put pickups from this brand called The Creamery, which are in Manchester, UK. They make a kind of a more similar to the original wide-range humbucker that's in those 70s Fenders. And then I did a little bit of, scan and replica for the stickers that he has on his guitar.
That's so cool.
Just thought that was fun. He's got the little, I forget that guy's name. He's like a Hello Kitty character or something like that. Baru, there you go. That's it. Bad Bats Baru.
My Hello Kitty knowledge pays off again.
And X-Girl and a little panda bear sticker. That's fun.
Awesome.
And I modded the electronics a little bit. He just uses one volume knob and a pickup selector. So he's got no tone knobs, no other pickup controls. It's pretty simple. But I think it sounds great. And Squier Classic Vibe is pretty much like the best value you can get for like a cheap import guitar that plays great and still sounds great too. So shout out to Squier.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much my rig in a nutshell. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
My name's Cory Furlong. I play the Ed parts for there, and been with the band a couple of years now, and been playing with Joe since like forever in some capacity.
That's
or
right.
another.
You guys were in Burn Holiday together.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we met in college, been playing since then. First, we're going to kick off with there. So that's why we have the aux tom set up. They're going to get scrapped right away, and everything else is going to be played on one of these two guitars or with some aux percussion over there.
Right.
So basically, I've got an input switcher that determines which guitar or Chaos pad is inputting into the board. So A is the Strat, B is the Gibson, and C is the pad itself. So for like everything that's right place in the gloaming, I pop this bad boy on, and now the Chaos pad is live.
Right.
So I sample Joe and spit it back out through the board, because
Right.
this pedal sort of routes this way.
And that's where Joe's mic vocals
So
are
what
going
if I say-
through there.
Correct.
Goes
Yeah.
through there, comes out of his amplifier after he resamples it.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
a simple 1-2
Yeah.
switcheroo.
And you were mentioning that that's a little bit of almost a mirror image of what Radiohead does.
right.
In
So-
that,
Yeah, usually that's Johnny Greenwood's job.
Right.
So Cory here mostly playing the Ed O'Brien.
mostly
role.
Ed.
Mostly Ed. But every once in a while we switch things up, and so he has chaos duty.
And Ben has enough on his plate. He's got about 7
Ben instead
instruments over
is
there.
sampling. Well, actually, he's resampling, and I won't spoil it for him. He'll tell you what he does.
Yeah.
But otherwise, yeah, so sort of like Ed's board, although I don't have the exact delay pedals he has, rather than using any sort of reverb, I'm just using a combination of delays, these three up here in the left corner.
Right.
So this is an analog delay. That's really good for like How to Disappear Completely and the end of Weird Fish to get sort of like the big cavernous sound.
Right.
This is sort of like a more nondescript, tape delay, just sort of like a nice, simple delay, I guess is the best way to put it, for other songs where I just want to kind of beef up the sound. And
Right.
the DD7 I'm using specifically for like a short slapback type delay.
Right.
Or at the end of Karma Police, I sort of prime it to have like a really hot feedback. And then I'll make that like garbly gook noise at the very end. So that's the only one where I'll sort of crank up the feedback and get it to sort of go crazy.
Right. The actual guitars.
Yeah, the guitars themselves, the Strat I use for 85-90% of the set. This is the Ed O'Brien signature Strat. So most of the time these days he's like using this on stage, and Tom is actually using this for like 1 or 2 songs with the Smile too, which is kind of neat to see.
Yeah.
But basically, it's got a built-in sustainer pickup, which sort of generates a field and like sort of simulates the sound of an EBow, though it is a little bit different. So you sort of engage it with this switch down here. You flick it up to turn it on, And then there are 3 settings on this switch. Top setting is really what I use most of the time. It just sort of like sustains the note itself, and the others have some kind of like harmonic, setting mixes in. But yeah, this is a good guitar. It's a little bright at times. I'm probably at some point gonna get like an EQ pedal to kind of balance it out for certain songs. But I really do like it. It's got like a really chunky neck too, which some people don't like, but I really like.
Yeah. And the other one?
Yeah, the Gibson, the 335 is actually a Jim James signature guitar. They did like a really limited run of this like 3 or 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so this really isn't exactly what Ed uses for a lot of stuff. Obviously he's got his custom like semi-hollow body, but it's good for just a different tone, like definitely a warmer tone with the humbuckers. And so I'll use this for Street Spirit and like Fake Plastic and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He uses a Rick too a fair amount, and like I think at some point I'll probably incorporate that, because obviously I don't have enough stuff already and stuff.
That seems to be the theme, yes.
On the pile.
Right. And any other like really off the radar kind of homage to Radiohead or Ed?
Well, it is funny. So actually, I mean, maybe one of the least used pedals on this entire board is my phase pedal, because I sort of use it in a way that simulates like the Mellotron sound of the chorus in Lucky. So this pedal literally gets turned on for the chorus of Lucky, and that's it.
And
it's like just because we want to try to get that sound.
There you go.
And so that's it.
That's the commitment right there.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Ben Shen. I play the Johnny Greenwood role in There There. So starting with the guitars.
I know, right? Look at me, I'm so fucking happy.
This is a Mexican player Telecaster that I modified to add the same kind of pickups that Johnny Greenwood uses. So they're a lot hotter than a standard Telecaster pickup set. I also added a kill switch, so in Paranoid Android, when he does a sort of stutter effect, that lets me do that. I also, for a few tunes that use very bizarre tunings, I use this other guitar, which I built. It's a B-Way Guitars Mercury head, but with Line 6 Variax electronics added. And so those electronics let me retune the strings to any sort of weird tuning. So on songs like Optimistic, I can get all sorts of different tunings. It also lets me get acoustic sounds. So it's a kind of a Swiss Army knife type of guitar.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
We tried everything. Your guy, what's his name?
On the keyboard side, I've got a Yamaha MX49, so pretty compact 49-key synthesizer. So that just gives me the whole range of different keyboard and synth sounds that Johnny uses.
Right.
So, ranging from sort of mellotron, string and choir sounds to like the sort of fuzz-based synth that he uses on Lotus Flower. And then all of that, both the guitars and my synthesizer, as well as my vocal mic, go into this effects unit here on the floor, which is a Line 6 Helix. So the Helix is kind of like the central nervous system of the whole rig. So it kind of routes and plays traffic cop for all the different instruments. And the mic, it applies all the amplifier and amp cabinet type coloration so that it sounds like I'm plugged into an amplifier. All the effects pedals that Johnny uses are sort of emulated inside the Helix. And yeah, so it lets me, send my vocal signal to one line into the PA and my instruments into another line, so that the person who helps us, set the sound to the PA can play with those individually. And of course, when they're there, I've got here the toms that
Yes.
Colin kindly lets me borrow. And that's really my rig.
Excellent.
So,
Thank you
yeah.
so much.
All right.
Special edition, talking a little bit about our drum machine rig for tonight that Ben, our Johnny Greenwood, uses for the show. So obviously, Johnny Greenwood, when he does songs like Idiotech or Sit Down, Stand Up live, he uses an actual analog modular synthesizer on stage, which has been hilariously known to be prone to some tempo-related issues or some error. I think they've kind of tightened that up more in recent years and recent tours. We opted for a kind of more compact, digital-based solution. So what this is the brain of it all is a sequencer called the Arturia Beat Step. So that sends, kind of the patterns for the drum beats for the songs to these boxes, which are kind of the brains of the operation. So this is a sampler. This is the Korg Volca sample. You can load up, any different types of samples in there. We use it mostly for, drum machines or kits or things like that. We use a few different, things like the gloaming. We put some loops in there and things like that too. And then we also have this Korg Volca bass, which we use kind of like an analog synthesizer, like a single voice analog synthesizer. So that's useful for, for example, some of the boops in different versions of Idiotech. We might make the boops with this instead of through a sample, or in this case, Sit Down, Stand Up, and we get that kind of squelchy filter, almost like an acid bass type kind of sound. That's just using the filter on this synthesizer and letting it self-oscillate. It gets mixed through a little tiny mini mixer here and then sent out as a single signal to front of house, and then this is for routing the MIDI, the control data from this to these. So yeah, we've been pretty happy with this, kind of recreating both the kind of the drum side of his analog synths and the synth side. But so many different ways to skin the cat. But,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's the drum machine.
Excellent.
Hi, I'm Charles Boehmig. I play bass tonight for There There. I'm filling in for the wonderful Jay Lynch. So I'm playing all of Colin Greenwood's parts. So that includes bass guitar and bass synth.
But you weren't.
That's it.
But you were in there for a while.
I was in There for a while, but I recently moved down to Texas, so it's a little bit too much of a commute for regular gigs. They're in more than capable hands with Jay. And in fact, a lot of this equipment I'm going to be running you through isn't even mine. It is Jay's. So
well, let's talk about it.
it's similar to what I used when I was in the band. So this is a Bass Station 2. This belongs to Jay. Very kind for letting me use this. On OK Computer, Colin Greenwood used the original Bass Station for climbing up the walls. This Bass Station 2, I don't know exactly how similar it is to the original because I've never had an original, but we're able to get pretty close to that original bass synth sound. And then I also use this via a MIDI hookup to Joe's big Nord keyboard to control the sound samples for Idiotech.
Nice.
So it does double duty on that one.
Nice.
The bass here, this is Joe's bass.
Right.
It is a jazz bass. Colin Greenwood primarily plays a P bass, but he does play a jazz bass sometimes.
And I remember from when we did the interview, you had talked about when you were in the band, you had two basses, and it mirrored his.
Yes, I had the
for the first two albums or three, and
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a Music Man Sterling for the first couple albums, but ever since then he's been playing a. Pretty sure it's a 1972 Olympic white P bass. But the jazz will get us close enough tonight. This is a 2014 American Standard jazz bass.
Nice.
Again, Joe's kind enough to let me play for the evening.
Yeah.
And I am
pedals?
running this into my mini travel board here.
Right.
So I've got the tuner, which is self-explanatory. These two pedals, both Jay and I have. This is the Love Pedal cheese ball. I'm sorry, this is the JHS cheese ball, which is a clone of the Love Pedal Big Cheese. which is Colin's distortion that he's used for a long, long time. I'm not sure exactly when he got it. This one here is called the Terminal. This is a really nasty sounding fuzz based off of the Shin E companion fuzz,
Yep.
which is used on exit music on OK Computer.
Yeah, when that like bottom drops out.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly right. So I'm using these two, and then this pedal here on the left, I just got this last week. It is a Origin Effects bass rig. It's a bass preamp that's emulating a 70s Ampeg SVT through an 8x10 cabinet, which is not exactly Radiohead spec. I think that Colin Greenwood usually plays a GK head through an 810, but it gets us in the neighborhood. And then this is the house bass rig, which is actually a Gallion Kruger 800 RB into a 410 cabinet. That's mainly just for stage volume, because we got everything going through the in-ears and this crazy big rack back here. I don't know if Joe actually walked you through our in-ear system. We call this Rackzilla.
Nice.
It's got all of our wireless transmitters for our in-ears. All of our sends go in here.
Right.
And they are all sent out to the front of house system, so they can control their own mix. And the other cool thing that this allows us to do is record all of the audio in multi-track. So after the fact, if we get a really good performance of a song, Joe can go in and mix the audio as if it were, it gives you more than just sticking a mic out.
Right. Yeah, because you guys do tend to put out really good versions of your live performances on the YouTube page.
This has certainly been a super helpful tool. Just a good one. Nah, they're all good ones, Colin.
That's exactly right.
And we litter the stage with cameras as well, so we can always, Joe's got those video editing skills to get a really nice multi-angle, multi-track audio and video, which really captures what There does.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Colin. I play Phil Selway in There, Radiohead tribute. Yeah, I've worked really hard to try and replicate Phil's sound. As a band, we specifically look to replicate certain eras of sound, and this is the more modern era. This is a Gretsch 2017 Gretsch Broadcaster, 13-inch, 60-inch toms and floor toms. The only difference between this and Phil's kit is Phil uses a 20-inch kick. I use a 24-inch kick,
right? Just
because I always wanted a 24-inch kick and it looks pretty badass. We've matched right down to the cymbals. These are exactly the same cymbals that Phil uses today. This is a Zildjian K Dark Crash. This is a 17-inch Zildjian K Dark Crash. This one was hard to chase down. This is a 18-inch Uptown Ride Zildjian A, and this is I think he still uses this, but he started using this in the 2006 tour. It has, I'm not sure if that comes through in your camera, but it has a bit of a drier sound.
Yep.
So we kind of like that dry sound. We have to mic it because it's so dry. This is my pride and joy. This is a Noble and Cooley 14-inch snare. This is exactly the same kind of snare that Phil uses. A lot of what we do sometimes is just to find excuses to buy really nice gear.
Sure.
So this is the main snare that Phil uses. So I use it. So we use this snare. This is the Piccolo Store snare. This is a 14-inch snare. Also Noble and Cooley. I use it for two songs, Where I End and You Begin. I also use it for climbing up the walls. It's snare strap never goes on. It's just kind of dry sound. This is the same kind of. It's actually the more modern one, but this is a Roland sample pad SPD SX Pro. Clive is the only person who uses Roland right now. I think Phil took his away. But I use it for different reasons. We use it for a little bit of triggering. Unfortunately, the sound isn't on, so you can't hear it. But as you can see here, if you want to close in, we have the whole set listed here. We also have...
so things are preloaded in.
Everything's preloaded. The whole set's preloaded. Occasionally, we'll have a trigger. So we don't have the luxury of setting up like the real band does. So some of the sounds you'll hear on Climbing Up the Wall, where Johnny usually uses the radio to kind of get the local broadcast, that's triggered through the Roland. Also, some of the Paranoid Android Fred sounds, that's triggered through the Roland.
Right.
And we also use it generally as a click guide too. This little pedal to my left-hand side just gives me a little cheat sheet on the tempo. I listen to it before a song starts, turn it back off, just so we can stay on tempo. It's always hard to play live and get the tempo right, so we use that to kind of keep us straight.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
And a tambourine. Yeah, I use a tambourine for the Let Down and for Climbing Up the Walls.
Thank you so much.
All right.